Is the PPT visible?
No, ma'am.
No.
Now
What
it
about
is.
that? Visible? Okay. So we are starting with the next chapter, that is association rule mining techniques. And in the textbook Hanen-Camber 3rd edition, it is the 6th chapter. So you can refer the textbook. PDF has been already shared with you. So it is the 6th chapter of the textbook. Okay. So association rule mining, usually what we do is we try to see what are the frequent patterns. Okay, so before going to this association rules, let us see briefly about the frequent pattern. So what is a frequent pattern? So it's a pattern that occurs frequently in a data set. So given a data set, if some pattern we are able to find, if it's occurring again and again many times, it can be called as a frequent pattern. So it can be a set of items. So when I say set of items, I am not considering the order. It can be in any order. Suppose if I have items, say I1, I2, I3. So it could be I1, I2, I3 or I2, I3, I1 or I3, I1, I2. It can be anything. Okay, I'm not bothering or giving importance to the order. It's just the set of items that are occurring. So we can call it as the frequent patterns. So when I say sequence, I'm also giving importance for ordering. So I1 and I2, then I2 and I1 both are different. I'm not considering them as the same when it comes to this sequence part. I'm also giving importance to the sequence here. Then substructure. If it is we are representing in kind of a graphical, say some kind of a tree, then suppose if there is some substructure or a subtree which is occurring again and again, that is called as a frequent substructure. For example, you might have seen or studied in algorithms, right? Say for example, any of the recursion algorithms, you try to find the Fibonacci series, or you try to find a factorial of a given number, and if you try to represent it as a tree, the calls, you can see that certain calls we are making again and again, right? So some substructure it is going to repeat in our tree. So whatever is repeating many times more than what we expect, more than the given threshold, then we can call such kinds of pattern as the frequent patterns. And it was proposed by these three persons. So what is the motivation behind this? Say for example, somebody might be interested, what are the products that are purchased together by customer frequently? So for example, it could be pencil and eraser, right? So somebody is purchasing an item, say pencil, they also might purchase eraser along with the pencil. Or if you want to see the sequence, okay, what is the, suppose some customer is coming and is purchasing a personal computer or a laptop. So what is the next item that is bought by the same customer? Or usually, if you consider all the customers or majority of the customer, so what are the items that they are preferring after purchasing an item, say for example, PC? Is it a printer? Is it an antivirus software? Okay, so it can be anything. So that kind of information we are trying to see. Or it could be a DNS sequence, or given a documents you want to classify them automatically based on the topic or based on their content. Okay, so these kinds of questions or queries can be answered by this frequent pattern analysis, and it is having numerous applications in almost all domains. Few of them have been given here, basket data analysis. Basket is, it's usually called as the market basket. If you go to a market, a supermarket, what are the items that you pick up and put in your basket? Then cross marketing. Cross marketing is two different companies or two different domains, they come together and they try to collaborate with each other and then help each other to improve the sales of the items. Then sale campaign analysis, you can analyze about the sales. Then weblog analysis. So weblog analysis is whenever we Google or anything on the internet, any website for that matter. So whenever we click on any link, we go to a particular page, and that is maintained, the information is maintained by the web server. So like what is the IP address from where we came to the particular web page. Okay, what is the URL of that, and how long we were there, what is the amount of bytes that has been transferred, etc. So these kinds of informations are maintained by the web server. It is called as the web log. So you can analyze that web log. For example, if I say manipal.edu is a website, and if I look into my log, or if I try to analyze the log maintained by our server, it's possible for us to know like what are the different pages viewed or clicked by the different users or different viewers, or after clicking one particular page, what is more likely the next page which is going to be clicked by the users, etc. Then DNA sequence analysis. So there are any number of applications pertaining to different areas. So the list is endless. Any domain you take, wherever you go, we have the data, and because we have data, it is possible for us to analyze the data and find the inherent regularities that is there, that is present in the given data. So why is it important? As I told you, frequent pattern is an intrinsic and important property of data sets. So it is used in many of the data mining tasks. So you might have studied this in the first chapter, right? Various data mining tasks. So for example, it can be used to find association. So is there any association between various two items? Is there any association among various users? Okay, then correlation, whether is it present, and then causality. Suppose if I say that after purchasing one item, a customer is purchasing some other item, is there a specific reason for this? Whether the purchasing of one item is the cause for purchase of some other item. These kinds of things could be analyzed, provided we have with us the information regarding frequent patterns. Then pattern analysis, classification, cluster analysis. Okay, so there are the various data mining tasks which we have seen in the first chapter. So almost for all the data mining tasks, the frequent pattern analysis is useful. So let us see the basic example of frequent item set mining. As I told you, it is called as market basket, right? So you're going to the market, you can pick up the items, whatever you want, and you're putting into your basket. So we try to analyze. Either we can analyze a basket of an individual customer, or maybe all the baskets. So individual customer, it gives us the information what are the items preferred by that customer. So if you analyze, a customer might come to the supermarket many times. So if you get the transactions or the items purchased by the same customer over the period of time, and if you observe what are the items preferred by the customer, so you'll come to know what are the frequent items of that customer. Or else if you want to analyze not only for one customer, all the customers, that can also be done. So you'll come to know in general what are the preferences of your customer. So for example, the customer one has purchased milk, bread and cereal, and similarly you can see there are different 4 baskets of different customers. And the market analyst, so he may think, right, what are the items that are frequently purchased together by the customer? So how to get the answer for this, or why is it important for this person to get the answer for this? Can someone tell me the answer for this? Can you guess or tell me? How is it going to help this person, market analyst?
Ma'am, milk and bread.
Yeah. Okay, so in this example, analyst will come to know these are the two items. They are the frequent items. But how is it going to help him? In what way he or she can use this particular information of frequent patterns?
Ma'am,
They can probably stock milk and bread together since
Yeah,
people buy.
exactly. Good. Yeah. Then,
ma'am, buying in bulk will reduce the prices.
yes. Okay.
It can be used to analyze customer behavior.
Yes, yeah, you are right. Okay, so they can develop various strategies for their marketing. Why I'm telling you marketing? Because I'm telling this person is a market analyst. Okay, so by looking into the frequent patterns, they can develop various strategies. For example, the way you said, right, milk and bread, they can be placed together. Suppose some customer might come to purchase a milk. By looking into the bed which is placed near to it or next to it, he may tempted to purchase, otherwise he might not purchase the item, is it not? So different kinds of marketing strategies, they can manage their inventory. So if something is preferred by the customer more, you can have more stock of those items. Or if something is not preferred by the customer, you can think, okay, why is that customer is not preferring some item? Is it because of the cost? Is it because of the quality? Or is there any other reason? So they can analyze that and they can accordingly develop some strategies so that the sale of that item which is not frequent can also be improved. Sales promotion, we can say that okay, there's a discount. Suppose so there is some item which is stock is left and people are not preferring, and you'll come to know that through this analysis about these kinds of item. Then you can say, okay, see, I'm giving you some discount on these items. The moment people see the board of discount, definitely they'll come there, right? So like these different kind of strategies can be developed by the analyst. So not only the market analyst, it is useful for all those persons who are there in the business, the owner of the market, right? Because the moment the sales increases, the moment the customer prefers majority of the items that are available, then the profit will be naturally more for the owner. So he'll be happy, right? So there are various persons, the stakeholders, so all the stakeholders that is useful, and also for the customer. So because of this status, suppose if they are announcing some kind of discount, then it's kind of a saving for the customers also, right? Or I might say, okay, somebody is regular customer, I'm giving some benefits for my regular customers. So if I say this is the information, then maybe I can attract more customers and more customer might become my regular customers for my shop. Okay, so in different various ways it is going to help all the stakeholders they are involved. So same thing it is given here, right? So placing the hardware display close to the software display may help increase the sales of both item, because sometimes what happens is if you just think or if you observe, we go to some shop to purchase something, right? We'll be having some list of items. But majority of the times you see that when we return along with a list of items what we were intended to buy, maybe more number of items which were not there in our list. When we leave our home, it will be there in our basket, right? Because the moment we see there, we'll get attracted by looking into the item, or maybe we're looking into the price or different things. Okay, so naturally, if they're placing certain items which are related together, suppose let us say that if the hardware is available in the ground floor of a super bazaar and then software is available in the fourth floor, people might not be interested to go and find and look into the fourth floor. They might assume that okay, software products are not available in this shop, then they might go to some other shop in search of the software items whatever they require. Okay, so if somebody to the analysis, if they come to know these are the patterns or these are the items frequently purchased, or if they are correlated with each other somehow, then accordingly we can plan. So here, right? So customer tend to purchase computers and printers together. Then what happens? So sales and printers may encourage the sale of printer as well as computer. Suppose if you say that printers might not be purchased by all, right? Because we don't use printer whole day regularly as compared to the computer. It is very rarely, we don't require hard copy always. So usually we might prefer the computers or the laptop. But suppose somebody is saying that okay, there is some discount or there is some sale on these printers, then definitely along with the printers they also purchase the computers. So together you can increase the sale of some other item. So each of these item we can consider it as a Boolean variable representing whether a customer has purchased a particular item or not. So if an item is purchased, then we are going to put a value as 1, and if it is not purchased, the value we represent it as a 0. So in this, if we use this kind of notation, then it is possible for us to represent each of the basket by a Boolean vector. Suppose I am a customer, I am purchasing say 3 items, I1, I2, I9. Then if there are total number of 10 items available and I am purchasing 3 items, then my Boolean vector will be 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, something like that. Whatever the items I am purchasing, there it becomes 1. Other items it is a value is 0. And these Boolean vectors are used for the purpose of analysis. So what are the buying patterns? What are the frequent items that are preferred by the customer? And these patterns can be represented in the form of association rules. This is the rule. Okay, so we call this as the A implies B. This is called as association rule. This notation is implies. A implies B. Suppose if we say I is the set of all the items, then A is a subset of I and this B is also a subset of I, and both A and B are not null, because if A is also null, B is also null, and if I say A implies B, it's no meaning, right? It's absolutely a meaningless. And A intersection B equal to null. It means there has to be some common items in A. Suppose customer A has purchased some items, or B is contains transaction done by some other customer. So then we can say A implies B. That's the association rule. So how we can form such kind of rule? Suppose if I say that majority of the customer who are purchasing pencil are also purchasing rubber or eraser, then I can say that pencil implies eraser. Or if I say that there is some item 1 and item 2, the 50 or 60% of customers who are purchasing item 1 and 2 are also purchasing item 5. Then we say here I1 and I2 implies I5. This is what I was telling. Suppose these are the transaction IDs of various customers, and suppose if they are all the items. So customer 1 has purchased apples, cheese, then eggs, then honey and ice cream. So this biscuits, glue and dates he has not purchased. So we represent it by a 0. This is the Boolean vector of the customer 1. Similarly, you can see the Boolean representation of various customers. So we'll come to know what are the items that are purchased by different customers. So coming back to our association rule. Suppose if we have information, right, customer who purchase computer also tend to buy antivirus software at the same time. So then the rule is like this: computer implies antivirus software. And you can see something here in the bracket, right? Support and confidence are the two measures which are used to see whether the patterns, whatever we are trying to find, they are interesting or not. Okay, so so this rule says support 2%, confidence 60%. Support of 2%, what does it mean? Overall transaction, if you look into, then 2% of the transactions show that computer and the antivirus softwares are purchased together by customers. That's what is the meaning of support. Then the confidence equal to 60%. Confidence means the customers who have purchased computers. Out of that, okay, 60% of customers also purchase this antivirus software. It is something like conditional probability.
Ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I didn't understand like what's the difference between support and confidence, because in both of them there's purchase, right? Like both of the items are bought together.
Yeah. So if you consider overall number of transactions, suppose let us say that for the sake of understanding, assume we are having 10 transactions of 10 customers. Fine. So out of that 10 customers, let us say that there are 8 customers who purchased computers. Okay. Then there are 7 customers who purchased antivirus software. Then say there are 5, sorry. So there are 5 customers who have purchased computer and antivirus. This is the scenario. So out of 10 transactions, there are 5 transactions where both the items are present. So it means that here with respect to these values, support is 5 by 10. That means how much it is 1 by 2 or 50%. Got it? So overall number of transactions, how many transactions are having both these items together? So then in this example, if I say 5 customers are purchasing these two out of 10 customers, it is 5 by 10 or 1 by 2 or it is 0.5 or 50%. That is the support. Then what is the confidence? There are 8 customers who have purchased computer, right? So out of 8, 5 customers are also purchased antivirus software. So this is, please note that computer implies antivirus software and another rule, antivirus implies computer. They are not the same, they are different rules. With respect to this rule, the person, what is the probability that the customer purchasing computer also purchase the other item? Here it is antivirus software. So with respect to these values, if I say there are 8 customers who have purchased computer out of 8, so there are 5 customers who are also purchased antivirus along with the computer. So then my confidence is 5 divided by 8. Got it? This is the confidence. Okay. Whereas this 5 divided by 10 is my support. Is this clear now? Support is overall number of transactions. How many transactions contain them together? So this confidence is with respect to this rule. A implies B. So whenever there is a LHS, along with LHS, how many times this RHS is also there? And if you say, if I write another rule, antivirus, if I say that, let me write, suppose this is the antivirus. Okay, if I say antivirus implies computer. So what is the support and what is the confidence? Support is out of 10 transaction, there are again 5 customers who are purchasing both computer and antivirus software. Support is again it becomes 50%. When you look into the confidence, then what happened? How many customers are purchasing antivirus? That is, here you can say it is 7 persons. Okay, so out of that 7, how many have purchased computer also? Then it becomes 7, sorry, then it becomes 5 by 7. So here what happens? Confidence is 5 by 7 and support remains same, that is 5 by 10. So we'll see more example, we'll solve problem on this. I'll show problems how to find out this support and confidence. Fine. So support of 2% means 2% of all the transaction under analysis show that computer and antivirus software are purchased together. So we are not bothered about the order, whether you purchase computer and then antivirus software or it's the other way. But the thing is the customers have purchased together. Confidence of 60% means 60% of the customers who purchased computer also bought the software. So what is the inference here? By looking into these values, out of 10, there are 8 customers who purchased computer. It means it is not only computer, they have purchased other items also. So computer is one of the item in their basket or in their transaction. Similarly, out of 10 customers, 7 customers have purchased this antivirus software. So along with antivirus software, they might have purchased many other items also. But we are concentrating this because this is the rule which we are trying to analyze. Okay. Similarly, there are 5 customers who have purchased both of these items. What does it mean? It means out of 7 customers who purchased antivirus software, 5 customers have also bought computer. Other 2 customers who purchased this software, they did not purchase computer. Similarly here, 8 customers have purchased computer and 2 customers, their basket computer is not there. And out of these 8 customers, 5 customers also purchased antivirus software and remaining 3 customers who purchased computer and they did not purchase this particular item antivirus software. Okay, so this is the A implies B and B implies A. They are the different, they are not the same. Numerator could be the same because looking into the items, both the items A and B purchased together, but the denominator always it may vary. So association rules are considered as interesting, or we also say they are strong rules if they satisfy both minimum support threshold and minimum confidence threshold. So what is this minimum threshold? So this minimum threshold is decided by the users. Okay, suppose let us say that if I come to the student, so one student might aim for say 9 CGPA, right? That's a threshold. So if he or she is able to score 9 or more than that, they're happy because their threshold was 9. Then maybe some other student, they may be happy with only say 6 CGPA. Okay, so even if they get 7 also, they're happy. Whereas the person who threshold is 9 and the person is securing 8.5 is unhappy, whereas the threshold is 6 and if you are getting 7, they are happy, right? So it depends upon our goal. What is different customers or different shop owners, it is up to them to decide. See, I'm happy in my shop. If suppose today if 10 customers are turned up to my shop, I'm happy. Or somebody might think that, okay, I want minimum 100 customers per day. If there are not 100 customers per day, then I need to think, okay, why is that today there are less number of customers? How I can attract more number of customers? How I can meet my target? Okay, so whatever the threshold, we cannot question the threshold, but once the threshold is decided and the support and the confidence, if they are both are more than their respective threshold, such kinds of association rules, we call them as the strong association rules or interesting association rules. So let us take one example again. There are 5 transactions here. You can see there are various transactions IDs which have been given to them. Just observe the transaction. So there are many item sets, right? So item set means it is a set of one or more items. For example, one customer with a transaction ID 10, these are the 3 items. Similarly, you can see there are the 5 transactions. So this is how we write. X is an item set with this many number of items. If K is the number of items in a set, we call them as the K item set. For example, here we are having 3 items here. So this is 3 item set. Whereas here we are having 5 items. So it is called as the 5 item set. So 5 item set means item set with 5 items. If I say 3 item set, it means that there's a transaction which is having 3 items. In general, K item set. K number of items are there. We call it as the K item set. And then when we say it's a support, support could be either absolute or it could be a relative support. So how are they different? So absolute support means I'm just counting number of times a particular item appears. Suppose if I say nuts, so nuts is I can count 1, then 2 and 3, right? So the absolute count or absolute count of nut is 3. It means that there are 3 transactions which are supporting this item nuts. That's the meaning of it. Overall transactions are 5. Okay, so we are not looking into how many transactions are there when we say this absolute support. We simply say that okay, there are 3 transactions which are supporting this item nuts. So absolute support of the nuts is 3. Or if it is the example of say coffee, coffee is present here and then here. So the absolute support of the item coffee is 2. It means there are 2 transactions which are supporting means they are containing the item called as coffee. And when I say it's a relative support, I also take into consideration total number of transactions. If I say 3 by 5 out of 5 transactions, 3 transactions are supporting this item none. So relative support is 3 by 5. So just a diagrammatic like kind of a Venn diagram. So customer purchasing one item, customer purchasing another item. What is the probability that customer purchasing both? Suppose if I fix, this is the definition. Support is probability that a transaction contains X and Y. So please note here that don't get confused with this notation. In terms of your mathematics, this might be a union, right? An item present in either this or this. But here the meaning of this is transaction which contains both X and Y. This is a standard notation which has been used in data mining since many years, and people have accepted this, and this notation is continued to be used in data mining. So please don't get confused with your mathematical symbol or set symbol for this. The meaning of this is the transaction which contains both X and Y. It is not or. Okay, it is and both X and Y. That is the support. Then confidence is conditional probability. A transaction having X also contains Y. A transaction having computer also has the antivirus software. That is the conditional probability. It is called as the confidence. Suppose if I say that threshold minimum support is 50% and minimum confidence threshold I'm fixing it as 50%. They need not be the same. It can be anything. Just for this example, we have assumed them as 50%. So now find out what are the frequent patterns. So if you say 50%, so what is the, we are having now how many transactions here? We have 5 transactions, right? So what is 50% of 5? What is 50% of 5? Can someone answer my question? There are 5 transactions here. So what is the 50% of this? Pranav Reddy. Pranav Reddy, you are there or not? After calling your name, if I'm not getting answer, I'll assume that you're simply logged in and you're not there, and I may mark absent for those students. Abhishek Prashant. Abhishek Prashant. Abhishek Srivastav. Abhishek Srivastav. Pranav Reddy, you're telling yes, then you have to tell me the answer also. I asked a question, right? What is 50% of 5? We have 5 transactions. I want you to answer. What is 50% of 5? You can just try. Don't bother whether the answer is right or wrong. Okay, Venkat Shiva, the answer you are telling it as 2. So here we have 5 transactions. So 50%. 50% of 5 is how much it is? 2.5, right? So if it is not a whole number, then you need to either round off. If it is less than 5, you can round down it to the previous digit. If it is equal to 5 or greater than 5, you can round off it to the next digit. So in this case, we are having 5 transactions. Fine. So 50% is 2.5, and after rounding off, we get it as 3. It means the absolute support, the support has to be 3. So please note that the support value can be given either in terms of the percentage, or it could be given as the number. If number is not given, then only the percentage is given, then you need to find out what is the number. Okay, in this case it is 3. So here you can see that bead, nuts, dapper, eggs. So they are all the items which are having their count as 3 or more than 3. Okay, so bead, nuts, for example, coffee. If you take coffee, the support count of coffee is 2, and which is not satisfying our minimum support of 50% or the count 3. Hence you can see here, this is the frequent patterns we are listed out. So in this frequent pattern, you can see coffee is not there, right? Why it is not there? Because its support count is not meeting the minimum threshold. Then similarly, milk, right? So milk is also not a frequent pattern with respect to this example, because the count is 2, and if an item, by its definition, if you want to say that item is frequent, it should satisfy the minimum support threshold. So like this, you can see they are the items which satisfy the minimum support of 50%. These are the single items. So if I'm interested that any two items, if they are purchased together, then they should also satisfy this minimum support. So as I told you, right, A implies B and B implies A are not the same. You can see here B. So count of beer is 3%, I mean 3, and diaper is it is 4, right? So how do you see the support? You need to count this item beer and diaper together, how many times they are occurring. So they are occurring in the first transaction together, in second transaction, then in third transaction. So out of 5, there are 3 transactions supporting these two items. So it is 3 by 5 is your support, that is 60%, right? Then confidence. So whenever a customer purchases B, along with B, how many times the customer is also purchasing this diaper? So you can see there are 3 customers who have purchased this item. So all these transactions also contain the item. It means it is 100%. So whenever a person purchases this item, definitely the customer is also purchasing this particular item. Now if you look into the other way, the reverse rule, diaper implies B. So here also, as I told you, numerator or the support remains same, because the support means how many transactions contain both the items together. So still it is 3 by 5. But if you look into this confidence, okay, then you can see there is one item in the last transaction, diaper here. So there are 4 customers who are purchasing diapers. So out of those 4, 3 persons are also purchasing B with this diaper. So diaper implies B with 60% of support and 75% of confidence, and minimum thresholds what we have kept is 50%. So you can see here both of them, support and the confidence, they are more than the threshold. Hence we can see that both these rules are strong, or both the rules are interesting. I hope now it is clear, right? Support and the confidence, the difference between these two measures. Any doubts, anyone? Okay, then no doubts. Let me continue. So these are the equations and the formula. So support of A implies B. It means probability the transactions containing both the items A and B. They can be items, they can be item set also. Again, I'm telling you, don't get confused with this symbol. I've given here, right? So it indicates the probability that the transaction contains both A and B. So it is not R. Then confidence is, as I told you, it's a conditional probability. So given A, what is the probability of B? So A implies B. If A is there along with A, how many times B is also preferred along with A? So confidence is A implies B, that is probability of B given A. And we can also write this as support of A and B by support of A, right? It means how many customers are preferring A, out of that along with A, how many are also preferring this B. So it can be support count. Support count is in terms of number, or you can just say it as a support. They are one and they are the same. One is the count, one may be in terms of percentage. So with this background, let us move to the association rule mining. So it's a two-step process. That is how we are going to find out this kind of rules, association rules. So first step is we need to find all the frequent items. So what do you mean by frequent items? So they are the items whose support is greater than or equal to the minimum support, right? So minimum support is also indicated by sigma. Sigma means it's a minimum support, minimum threshold support. Then, so once something is satisfying the minimum support, it becomes the frequent. Then we try to generate the rules from these frequent item sets, and for this rule we check whether it satisfies the threshold that is greater than or equal to the given confidence C. So in this way, at the end what happens, the rule is something which satisfies both the minimum threshold as well as the minimum confidence. So if I say the number of items are 2, 3 or 5, it's fine, we can find out. But in general, shop or supermarket, they'll be having many items, right? Hundreds or thousands of items will be there. So in that case, to find all the items, individual frequent item, it is really a difficult and time consuming task. So for that purpose, to make our process of finding the association rules to make it as efficient, we use some other concepts such as closed patterns and max patterns. So to see what are the what is the meaning of these two terms, that is closed patterns and max patterns. Suppose if I say that I have 5 transactions and number of items are 6. So what are the possible number of item sets? So it is 2 power 6, right? It is 2 power, these are the possible ways. One customer, suppose let us say that if I take the simple example of 3 items. So one customer might purchase only one item A, another customer may but only B, or there are some customers who might purchase only C, and some customers may purchase only A and B, and some AC and some BC, and some may purchase all A, B, C, right? So how much it is? It is 1, 2, 3, then 4, 5, 6, and then this is 7, right? That is various ways or various patterns. All these patterns need not be frequent, but you want to see the frequent pattern, definitely we require the count of each of the pattern, is it not? So once we have the count of each pattern, then only we can compare that count with the threshold count and we can say whether it is a frequent one or not. So suppose if you have a pattern with 100 items, then how many sub patterns? It is 10 power, right? It is more than 10 to the power of 30. So as the number of items becomes more and more, it's a time consuming process. It becomes difficult to find the association rules or the frequent patterns, so in less amount of time. So we are going for this closed and max patterns. So let us look into this. So we are mining closed and max pattern. We are not mining all the patterns. Okay. So an item set X is closed if X is frequent. Of course, it has to be free. If it is not frequent, it won't be considered as an interesting. It is not a strong rule, right? So it has to be a frequent one. So X is frequent and there exists no super pattern Y. Okay, Y is a superset of X. X is subset of Y. So there exists no super pattern Y with the same support as X. This is the definition of closed pattern. I repeat, an item set X is closed if X is frequent and there exists no super pattern Y with the same support as X. Similarly, the max pattern we are defining as if X is frequent and there exists no frequent super pattern Y. So here super pattern may exist, but the count is not same as this one. Here we are saying super pattern is not existing. That's how they are the different, closed and then the max pattern. So both of them, they help us to reduce the number of patterns. The moment the number of patterns are reduced, definitely the number of association rules will also be reduced. So what is a super pattern? Super pattern nothing but a proper superset. A super pattern of a pattern is a proper superset of the pattern. So with this, I'll take an example. Suppose assume that minimum support count is 2. Okay. Let us assume we are having 3 items A, B and C. Suppose the pattern AB has support count of 2 and a pattern ABC has support count of 2. So we have 3 items ABC and we have a pattern, one pattern AB with the count 2 and another pattern ABC with the count 2. Then is the pattern AB a closed one? So how do we know whether AB is closed or not? We just look into the definition. To say pattern AB is a frequent pattern. Why frequent pattern? Because the count of AB is 2 and the minimum support count is also given as 2. Hence it is a frequent, right? But it has a super pattern, right? Because if you look into this ABC, so ABC is a superset, right? Super pattern of this pattern AB. So it has a super pattern that is not less frequent than AB. So ABC count is also 2. So AB is not a closed pattern. If you go back to the definition, it says a closed X is closed if X is frequent and there exists no super pattern Y with the same support count as X. So in this case, what is X? X is AB, right? So AB is not closed because there exists ABC, which is a frequent item set, and this ABC is a superset, a super pattern of this AB. Hence, AB is not a closed one. Again, if I consider item instead of ABC, X, Y, Z, and suppose the count of XY is 3 and the count of XYZ is 2. So now can I say XY is a closed pattern? Look in the definition. XY is a frequent and also only super pattern of XYZ is less frequent than XY, right? So XY is 3. XYZ has support count of 2 and XYZ is a superset of XY, but its support count is less than the support count of XY. Hence, we can say XY is a closed pattern. So what is closed pattern? A pattern which is a frequent and none of its super pattern are having the count same as the count of the pattern. Only then we say it as the closed pattern. Then how we can define the max pattern? As the name itself tells, max, it is a maximal. Example. Again, same example I've taken. So ABC is there and AB has support count of 3 and ABC has support count of 2. So can I say whether AB is a max pattern? So pattern AB is a frequent, right? Because why AB is frequent? Because its support count is 3, which is greater than the minimum threshold 2. And ABC is also frequent. Why? Because its support count is 2, which is equal to the minimum threshold. So here both AB and ABC are frequent as per the definition because their respective counts are equal to or greater than the minimum support count. So AB is frequent, ABC is also frequent. Now, can I say AB as the max pattern? No. Why? Because AB is a frequent, but it has a super pattern that is frequent as well, right? Because ABC is also a frequent, which is a super pattern of this, though the count of ABC is less than AB. But thing here noted here, the importance given is whether it is a frequent or not. So ABC is frequent, so it's a maximal. If I say AB and ABC, ABC is a superset. So it is okay. So AB cannot be referred as the max pattern. Similarly, if you look into the another example here, XY has support count of 3 and XYZ has support count of 1. Now can I say XY has max pattern? Yes, I can say. Why? Because XY support count is 3 and again we assume minimum support threshold is 2. So since 3 is greater than 2, XY is frequent. Then what about XYZ? XYZ is a superset of XY, but it is not frequent. Why? Because its support count is 1 and the minimum threshold is 2. So 1 is less than 2. Hence XYZ is not a frequent one. Okay. Is this clear? Closed and the max pattern. So what is the computational complexity if you want to find these kinds of frequent patterns and then mine those frequent patterns to get some useful knowledge? So how many item sets are generated in the worst case? So number of frequent item sets to be generated is sensitive to the minimum threshold. It depends, right? If I say the minimum support is 1%, then there will be many frequent item sets. If I say minimum threshold is say 90%, there will be few item sets. Say for example, if it is a placement, if a company comes, if it says that I'm open to all, then it has to take the interview of all the 240 students, right? Suppose if they say that no, the minimum eligibility is say 9 CGPA. Then out of 250 students, there are few students who are able to secure 9.5 CGPA. So the number gets reduced. Suppose if company tells, okay, my eligibility criteria is only 5 CGPA, then there are more students who are eligible for the interview. So they need to do that interview process of all the various different rounds to all those students. So it depends upon the threshold. If it is too low, then there are more number of items. And if it is too high, there are less number of items. So in the worst case, because whenever we say computational, we look into the worst case analysis, right? So worst case, it is m power n. What is m? M is the number of different unique items that are available and n is the maximum length of transaction. Suppose if there is a shop with say 100 items, whether all the persons are purchasing all the 100 items? No, right? Maybe maximum if they observe all the transaction and if they look into the count or the number of items present in all the transactions, it may be say 20 for example. Okay. So maximum maybe say 15 or a customer might have purchased 20 items, not more. None of the customers might have purchased more than 20 items in a single transaction or in a single visit. Then what happens? The maximum length of transfer, that is, okay, so that's how we can say the worst case it is m power. It means we need to find out those many different number of various combinations of item sets. So just an example has been given here. If it is Walmart is having 10 power 4 kinds of product, what is the probability or the chance that a customer picks up any one of the product? So given 10 power 4, a customer might pick one item. So probability is 1 divided by 10 power 4, or I can write it as 10 power minus 4, right? So the chance to pick up a particular set of 10 products, instead of 1 it is 10 products, then it becomes 10 power minus 40. So what is the chance that this set of 10 products to be frequent? 10 power 3 times in 10 power 9 transactions. You can see the complexity, right? So more the number of transaction, more the number of item, the complexity increases. The number of transactions, number of items which are purchased or preferred frequently also increases. So with this background, we'll go start with the one of the most basic algorithm in data mining. So you want, you can take a break for 5 minutes, or during this 5 minutes break, if somebody would like to ask any questions or doubt, you can ask me. Any doubts? So any doubts or any clarifications? So please note that we have just started the basics of data mining. So whatever we are discussing, it is very important for you to understand these concepts. Otherwise, the other parts, other chapters, it is difficult for you to follow. if you don't understand this. Okay, let us continue. So the a priori algorithm is proposed by Agarwal and Srikanth in 1994. So it uses the bottom-up approach where frequent subsets are extended one item at a time. That is called as the candidate generation step in this algorithm. Okay, and groups of candidates are tested against the data. So it's also called as level-wise algorithm. That means first we see what are the single items, they are frequent. Suppose if I have 3 items, so suppose if I have 3 items, say A, B and C. So out of that, suppose if A and B are frequent, that is my first level. Then using this AB, for the next level, I form a new set of size 2, that is A comma B. Then I'll see whether this AB is frequent or not. So it is called as the level wise and bottom up. First we take individual items, then we take 2 item set, then 3 item set, then 4 item sets and so on. So in general, K item sets are used to explore K plus 1 item sets. It means from single items I am getting the 2 items. Using 2 items I am able to get 3 items and so on. And this process terminates when there are no further successful extensions are found. Suppose if I say that I am able to get 3 items A, B and C, and suppose I am not able to find another item set with the 4 item, then it is terminated. So it uses breadth first search to count the candidate item sets efficiently. So what do you mean by this candidate? So candidate means it is a nothing but an item. It may be a frequent, it may not be a frequent. So we take candidate items, we count the support of this candidate item, we compare that with the threshold, and if it is more than threshold or equal to threshold, then it becomes the frequent. Let us say that if I go for an interview, I am a candidate, right? So if I get selected, then I'll become employee. Otherwise, I'm not an employee. If I'm not qualified through that interview, I'm not an employee. So candidate is an item which is having a potential to become either frequent. So we don't know that it's frequent or not, but it may be a frequent. So that's why we call it as the candidate item. So in a priori, we use the notation, the other standard notation. We use the notation C to represent candidate items, and then we use the notation L to represent the frequent item. C stands for candidate item. And why we call it as the a priori? So this uses prior knowledge of frequent item set properties. So it is called as a priori. Okay. So because the algorithm uses prior knowledge of frequent item set property, it is called as a priori. So to make it as efficient, we use something called as the pruning here. So any item set which is not frequent, then obviously superset will also not be a frequent, right? If, for example, if pencil and eraser is not a frequent, suppose if I say the minimum threshold is 80% and both pencil and eraser are not purchased by 80% of customer, then definitely pencil, eraser as a item set will not be purchased by more than 80% of customers, right? So if subset itself is not frequent, definitely its superset cannot be a frequent one. So that is the property which we are going to use. So all non-empty subsets of a frequent item set must also be frequent. This is what is called as the a priori property. I repeat, all non-empty subset of a frequent item set must also be frequent. If I say that A, B, C is a frequent item which satisfies the minimum threshold, then definitely individually A, B, C or A, B, A, C, BC. So any other subsets of ABC, definitely they will be frequent. So this is called as the special category of a property called as anti-monotonicity property. So what it says is, if a set cannot pass a test, all of its supersets will fail for the same set. Okay. So monotonic in the context of failing a test, they use anti-monotonicity property. So a priori is also, it is property similar to this. So you can say it's a special category of this anti-monotonicity property. So I told you, first we need to generate the candidate sets, and then we need to see whether these candidate sets, they are frequent or not. So the candidate generation of this a priori algorithm, the input is LK minus 1. As I told you, L we refer or use the notation as frequent item set. Okay, C is used to represent the candidate item set, whereas L is used to represent the frequent item set. So for example, if I say L1, so L1 means frequent items with single item. Suppose A, comma, B, and then C. Okay, this is L1. So L means it's a all frequent items of size 1. And suppose if I say something as L2. Is this clear? L1 and L2. L1 is item set with one item. And if I say it is L2, how do I represent L2? L2 is, suppose if I have an item set AB, or it could be say B, C. This is my L2. Okay, so L1 is single item set, L2 is two item sets each. Similarly, L3 means it's an item set containing all the pattern with 3 items. Okay, so L1, L2, in general it is LK. So using L1, I can generate the candidate sets of size 2. Hence, for candidate generation, the input is LK minus 1. Is this clear? Any doubts here? Candidate and frequent item? Candidate and frequent items. Candidate is C. Candidate may be a frequent, may not be a frequent, whereas L stands for always frequent set. Okay. So candidate generation function takes LK minus 1 as inputs and returns a superset of frequent K item set. So it has two steps, join step and then prune step. So join step, what it does is, it generates all possible candidate item set CK of length K. Okay. Then prune step, remove those candidates in CK that cannot be frequent. So this pruning step is used to make our a priori more efficient. We'll see this with example. Maybe it is you may understand better. So one thing you need to note here is always in these algorithms, all the transaction, each transaction might contain different items and all those items should be in a sorted order, lexicographic order. If it is say A, B, C, D, or if it is number, item I, if I say it is I1, I10, I5, I need to first order it as I1, I5, I10. If it is items, say A, B, Z, P, then I need to order them as A, B, P and Z. Or if it is the name, say pencil, then pen or eraser, fine or biscuit, then I need to first put it as a biscuit. It's a dictionary order. Okay, so whatever the way we represent the items, we need to arrange them in a sorting order. That is lexicographic order. This step is very important. So how to generate the candidates? As I told in the previous slide, it is a two-step process, join and then the prune. Suppose for example, join. If I say that I have an item, frequent item set of size 3, that is L3. Let us assume that these are all the items ABC, then ABD, ACD, ACE and BCD. Okay. So customer have purchased these three items frequently together. Similarly, items A, B, D are frequent items, then item A, C, D are frequent items and so on. So they are all the items. So it is L3, it means 3 item sets. Okay, so each of the transactions, whatever we have taken here, it contains 3 items. So the first step is join. Join means L3, you are joining with L3 itself. That's the reason we call it as the join step. The frequent item set is joined with itself. So how do we perform this? Let us say first I'll take this ABC and then I'll take this ABD. So you compare all the items. They are in the lexicographic order. You compare all the items one by one. For example, here in this case, here the first item is A. Here also it is A. So A equal to A. Then if you look into the second item B, here it is B and here also it is B. Then this is the last item. Yeah, please mute yourself. Arjun Dev. So I'm comparing. So A equal to A, B equal to B. And when it comes to this last item, suppose if you compare C and D. So the C is less than D. Okay. So all the item from the beginning before the last but item, they should be same. And if you compare this last item, the first one should be less than the other one. Only then it is possible for us to combine them and generate an item set. So in this case, AB is equal to AB. The last one here it is C and here it is D, and C is less than D, right? So we can form a new item candidate A, B, C, D. So we are using A, B, C and A, B, D to find a new candidate of size 4, A, B, C, D. Is this clear? Similarly, if you look into A, C, D and A, C, E, if you look into third and the fourth one, right? So first item is A, then second item is C, where if you see the last one here it is D and here it is E. So D is less than E. So it is possible for us to combine both of them. ACD and ACE together gives us ACDE. Suppose if I take second and third one, you observe here. So A and A. Second item it is B here and it is C here. So we cannot combine them together. If you say it is L3, then first two items should be same and the third item if you compare, one should be less than the other. So if you simply look into this here without any ordering, A equal to A and the last item is D for both and second item B and C. So B is less than C, but we cannot combine like this. Okay, please note that we are arranging all of them in lexicographic order. Then you compare the LK minus 1. So they should be the same. That is first, last but one item, whatever the number of items that are present, they should be same. And the last item we need to compare. If the last item one is less than the other, only then we can combine. Otherwise, it is not possible for us to combine them. So hence, using this L3, it is possible for us to generate only two candidate sets of size 4, that is A, B, C, D and A, C, D, E. So we call this as the C4, C for candidate items of size 4. Okay, so I cannot combine ABC with ACE. I cannot combine ABC with BCD. So I can combine ABC only with ABD. So if you try all possible combination, you can see that only combination what we are going to get as the candidate sets of size 4 are A, B, C, D and A, C, D, E. So this is how we generate the candidate item set. That's why I told you. So to generate the candidate item set of size K, suppose here if I say that the candidate item I am generating is C4, right? So if I want to generate C4, I need to perform join operation with respect to L3. L3 is joined with itself. Similarly, if I want to generate the candidate item sets of size C3, then I need to perform join operation, right? L2 is joined with L2 itself. Okay, so in general, I can say that if I want to generate candidate item set of size K minus 1, then for that the input is LK, right? So 1 less than D. So LK is the input to get candidate. Sorry, it is CK equal to LK minus 1. Right? If C is 4, L is 3. If C is 3, L is 2. So to get the candidate items, to generate the candidate items of size K, we require the frequent items of size K minus 1. Hence, LK minus 1 is the input for the candidate generation function. Now, so after performing this join operation, we are going to get the candidate items. Here we have A, B, C, D and A, C, D, E. So after generating the candidate, the second step is pruning. So what is this pruning? So without pruning, what happens? I need to look into my database. I need to count the support of item A, B, C, D as well as this item set A, C, D, E. Okay. Now, suppose if I use this pruning step, then what happens? So what do we do in pruning step B? We take one item sets in the candidate item and check whether all its subsets are present in the frequent subset or not. For example, if you take this A, B, C, D, this is of size 4. You consider all its subsets of size 3. If all its subsets of size 3, if they are present in L3, then only we carry this further. Otherwise, we remove it. So hence it is called as the pruning. So if I take this A, B, C, D, what are the subsets? A, B, C, which is present here, then A, B and D, which is present here. Then we have B, C, D, which is present here. Then we have A, C, D, which is also present here, right? So all the subsets of size 3 of this A, B, C, D are present in L3. Whereas if you look into this A, C, D, E, so A, C, D is present, ACE is present, whereas CDE and ADE, right? ADE and then CDE are not present here in this L3. Hence, we are not going to consider as we remove this. So it is called as the pruning. So ACD is removed because ADE as well as this CDE is not in L3. So even if any one of the subset, if it is not present in L3, we are going to prune it. We are not going to consider further. So after this pruning, now we are left with only one item set A, B, C, D as our candidate item set of size 4. Is this clear? So this is the first step. Generate the candidate and then perform pruning. So by using these two steps, it is possible for us to find the frequent item sets. This is the first part of the a priori algorithm. So I'll just stop here. If you have any questions, you can ask me. We'll continue this in the next class. That is next Monday. I'll continue. So we'll see the complete algorithm. We'll also take a proper database of small size and we are going to trace the algorithm and we are going to see how we can perform all these operations. Okay. So now for the time being, if you have any doubts, you can ask me about this self join and then the pruning. So any queries or any doubts? So please just read the textbook once till here, whatever we discussed today, before coming to the next class, that is on Monday. Okay. If you have no doubt, I'll stop today's class here.